Greetings, fellow Final Fantasy players, and welcome back to the F2 Worlds channel, where we explore different topics in the Final Fantasy series. If you are new to the channel and enjoy the content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. For now, I post once a week, but once we reach 50 subscribers, I will be uploading twice a week. Now on to the video. Based on the title, we will be exploring an alternate timeline of Final Fantasy X based on a certain theory. What if Auron had told Yuna and her guardians the truth of Yunalesca and the Final Aeon when he joins her as her guardian? There would be a lot, but to what extent? That will be what we will be exploring in today's video. Enjoy! In order to begin this video, we need to create an alternate timeline of events of Final Fantasy X, and this timeline would start in Luca, when Auron and Tidus offered to join Yuna's services as her guardians. After the iconic laugh scene between Tidus and Yuna at the end of the Luca arc, they head towards the Albed Center in the Mian High Road. This would be where Auron would tell the party about the truth of the final summoning. In the original timeline, Auron did not tell Yuna and her guardians anything until they reached the Zanarkand ruins, because he wanted them to experience Spira through her pilgrimage and learn from their encounters. In this timeline, the deaths of Braska and Jet overwhelmed Auron, and he hopes to see Sin destroyed permanently. But he knows that this cannot be done if Yuna followed the same path her father did until the end. So Auron would gather the party in front of the Albed Center and ask them how much they knew about the journey. Yuna and her guardians know that the end of the journey would result in the death of the summoner once the final Aeon is summoned, and this fact surprises Tidus, who immediately questions why that is the case. This would be the extent of the party's knowledge, since they are not aware of how the final Aeon is truly obtained, and Tidus begins to worry for Yuna's well-being and becomes rebellious of the pilgrimage. Auron would immediately calm him down and start to explain the process of the final Aeon. When the summoner reaches the end of her pilgrimage in the Zanarkand ruins, they would be met by Yunalesca, first summoner to defeat Sin, and she would ask for a guardian to be transformed into the final Aeon, and it had to be someone that the summoner has a strong connection with. This would result in the death of the summoner once the final Aeon is summoned, and Sin would be destroyed for 10 years until it returns. When he reveals this to the party, everyone is shocked. While they knew that the summoner would be killed, they are not aware that a guardian would be transformed into the final Aeon and would also result in their deaths, since the summoner would die along with them. Yuna would initially not believe this, but Auron asks her to look in the eyes of someone who has completed the journey and was there when Jet turned into the final Aeon and died with Braska in order to defeat Sin, and to look at their present course 10 years later. Yuna begins to question her faith in Yevon and heavily considers ending her pilgrimage there, but Auron pleads with her to continue. He asks for this because he believes that she can find a way to defeat Sin permanently. Otherwise, he would have revealed this without asking to be her guardian. The rest of the party, especially Tidus, would be opposed to the idea, to which Auron tells them to approach this journey with the intention of learning more about Sin and see if it has any weaknesses. But he also tells them not to approach any maesters or people of high position in Yevon, since they would be branded as traitors if they go against the teachings of Yevon. This would lead Yuna in conflict because the maesters of Yevon and those in high position in the clergy would know more about Sin and how the process is done, but cannot ask them due to her worry that they would exile her and brand her a traitor, but ultimately decides to continue the journey. The events beyond this point are the same as in the original timeline until Operation Mihen, where she is approached by Seymour at the end of the battle, asking to be her pillar of strength, in an attempt to gain her trust by instilling confidence in her to get stronger as a summoner. Yuna, conflicted on if she should ask Seymour, a maester of Yevon, about the process of the final Aeon, would instead be discreet on gaining his trust, since she has no other way of learning more about Sin unless she asks a maester. She would ask him if she can ask him anything if she was truly curious about something, to which he agrees, but not here. Instead, he would ask her to visit him in Guadasalam if she wanted to speak. He leaves and the party continues their journey. When the party reaches Guadasalam, they wait for Seymour at his manor. Seymour eventually appears and greets the party, showing them the sphere of ancient Zanarkand and asks Yuna if she has anything to ask him. Yuna, still conflicted on if she should ask Seymour about the process of the final Aeon, asks to speak with Seymour privately, to which Seymour ends the movie sphere and Yuna asks her guardians to wait outside while she speaks with Seymour. The party leaves, with Auron and Titus unsure of Yuna's motives. They begin to talk, and Titus sharing his concern for Yuna's safety. Auron assures him that if anything were to happen to Yuna, they would be ready for it. After some time, Yuna appears from the manor along with Seymour. Auron and Titus notice that Yuna is acting strange. Seymour bids farewell to her guardians and leaves for Macalania Temple, asking Auron why he's still there as he notices Auron is an unsent, and that the Guado are keen to the scent of the far plane. Auron would then shrug it off and remain silent. Seymour excuses himself and leaves. The guardians would ask Yuna what they spoke about, and she reveals that he asked her hand in marriage, which shocks the guardians. The party, apart from Auron and Riku, still visit the far plane, and Yuna speaks with her parents. But this time, she talks about both the marriage and the fact that she had asked Seymour what he knows about the final summoning. This causes a lot of conflict in Yuna between her faith in Yevon, Auron's revealing of the Final Aeon, and the fact that she just revealed to Seymour what Auron told her and asks him what he knows about the Final Aeon in Sin so she can beat it. She is far more conflicted but attempts to keep it inside. Titus notices this and asks her if she wanted to talk about anything, but she shrugs it off and changes the topic, instead focusing on the topic of Seymour asking her hand in marriage. The events go on as in the original timeline from this point, with Yuna obtaining the sphere from Jiskel, but without the scene where Yuna goes inside Guado's alarm for a second time to wait for Seymour, as she now knows that he has gone to the Macalania Temple. When the party reaches the Albed Center in the Thunder Plains, Yuna's conflict within herself is growing more after learning that Seymour had murdered Jiskel, and she now has told him the news of her figuring out a way to find out how to defeat Sin permanently. So her resolve to confront Seymour and convince him to turn himself in still remains, and the party travel to Macalania Temple. However, when the party reaches Macalania Temple, they are immediately arrested by Seymour and Keenock, along with a group of Bevel guards and Guado, with Seymour and Keenock accusing the party of treason. Seymour arrests her immediately because he feels that Yuna is too conflicted, and that it would be better for him to get her out of the way, rather than attempt to sway her to his control, since Auron is always nearby providing a close watch on her. The decision would greatly affect them since he craves Yuna's power to become the next Sin to unleash chaos to Spira as a way to free the people of Spira from the cycle of death. Auron would then give Yuna a look of disappointment that she had told the Maester about what he had told her. As the party is being transported to Bevel to await sentencing, the Albed ambush the group and rescue the party after a fight, and they are taken by ship to Bikanel Island where the party confronts Sid. Riku explains the history of the Albed and their home in Bikanel Island, as she does in the original timeline, but this time is done when they are already at the home. Sid wonders what Yuna has done to find herself in this situation, as the Albed have been keeping track of the events and would have heard that Yuna was immediately placed under arrest as soon as she arrives in Macalania Temple. At this point, Yuna is unsure what to say, but knowing that Sid is her uncle, making Riku her cousin, Yuna finally feels a sense of comfort knowing she can trust Sid and the Albed, so she reveals the truth that Auron had told her when he joined her as her guardian. Yuna finally feels a sense of comfort knowing that she can trust Sid, so she reveals the truth that Auron had told her when he joined her as her guardian, and that she cannot follow Yevon's teachings any longer. Despite Auron's initial disappointment that she had told his secret to a Maester, he ultimately sides with the Albed, knowing that they will be willing to help Yuna to find a way to get rid of Sin forever. It is at this time that Sid shows the party the Celsius, the airship that Titus and Riku had discovered on his first trip to Spira. Shortly after, the alarm would sound of the Guado invasion of home. While Yuna and her guardians aid the Albed and hold back the Guado and the forces of Bevel, including having a confrontation with Seymour, who would get killed in this fight after defeating him and Anima. The results of the battle still remain as the party and the Albed are heavily outnumbered and home is destroyed, but not before some of the defenders escape using the Celsius airship. This time, Yuna and her guardians are together in the Celsius, and they devise a plan with Sid to find a way to defeat Sin permanently. However, since they do not know enough about Sin, they realize they will need to make a visit to Bevel and speak with Micah, being the Maester for 50 years and would have the most knowledge about Sin. However, Auron suggests to visit Yunalesca since she might know more about how to defeat Sin, but in order to reach Zanarkand, they have to continue their pilgrimage. Yuna is initially hesitant to continue her pilgrimage, but Auron ensures that the faith of the temple give their power to the summoners, not the temples or the teachings. Yuna would make her way back to Macalania, this time accompanied by the Al-Bhed, who expect that the temples will be guarded. And sure enough, they were. When Yuna goes to pray at the Temple of Macalania, they are shocked to see Seymour, accompanied by Guado guards, on the room before the chamber waiting for her, making one last attempt to have her use him to become her final Aeon and defeat Sin, and that there is no other way. Otherwise someone would have already found a solution in the 1,000 years Sin had lived in Spira. Yuna refuses his offer and he transforms into Seymour Natus after absorbing the Guado's life force and would fight the party and be defeated. Yuna would then obtain Shiva and the party return to the Celsius, planning their next move. The next faith is in Bevel, but the party figures that Bevel would be heavily guarded as they would be branded as traitors, so they would have to create a diversion. The Celsius would have to open fire on Bevel and keep their guards busy, while Yuna and her guardians sneak their way to the Chamber of the Faith. After defeating Evre, Yuna and her guardians make their way to Bevel along with a small company of Al-Bhed, who are either killed or arrested, but provide the distraction needed for Yuna and her guardians to make their way to the Chamber of the Faith to obtain Bahamut. However, once they leave, they are immediately arrested by Kinok and Micah, and Yuna is given a trial. During this trial, Yuna pleads with Micah to help her find a way to defeat Sin permanently, to no avail as the Maesters present think she has spent too much time with the Al-Bhed, and deem her a traitor and is sent to Via Purifico along with her guardians. The events between now and the rest of the game remain the same, as the party escape and make their way to Zanarkand to confront Yunalesca, and find a way to defeat Sin permanently, to which she gives no advice, but mentions Yevon as she is being sent, and they obtain the information they need to defeat Sin permanently. The battle against Sin, going inside it to get to Yevon, would remain the same, including the fight and final defeat of Seymour Omnis, and the final battle against Jet, and the fight against all of Yuna's Aeons to make Yevon vulnerable to the party's attacks, and is finally defeated, delivering the eternal calm to Spira. As one can see, while the ultimate outcome of the events remain the same, some of the events within the game are changed due to a change in Yuna's perspective after her belief in the teachings of Yevon are in question quite early into her pilgrimage, and she starts to mirror Auron's resolve of wanting to be rid of Sin permanently despite the many obstacles that were in the party's way throughout the journey. This makes Yuna a more confident person who will do whatever it takes to defeat Sin, even going through followers and leaders of Yevon if she must, all to deliver the eternal calm and make sure that her father's death was not in vain. And that will do it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think of the timeline of events that would have happened if Auron had told Yuna the truth when he joined her as her guardian in Luca. This is a theory video, so there were certain events I created, but I made sure to stay as consistent as possible as to not completely change the outcome of the timeline. Do you think any additional events would have occurred? Let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new and are interested in videos such as this. If we reach 50 subscribers, I will be uploading videos twice a week. And that will conclude today's video, and that, as they say, is that.